Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Before I talk about the Southerners, the Southern California Hispanics, if you will, the Surenos, the X3, the 13s, what have you, let me just briefly touch on some important ideas here. Part of the problem was there wasn't a solid way for there to be conflict resolution in the streets. Okay? And that has to do with the fact that gangs talk about they're from a Set, right? Which goes back to Set, the deity of the principles of evil. And the reason why it is that way is because the government and the governing class, okay, they're kind of disproportionately English, they're Nordic disproportionately, they're Jews, they're LGBT people. Okay, they want people to appear to be evil. It's the old quote-unquote angry red savages routine, where no matter where they invaded, just like you often see in war, they wanted to make it seem like the people that they were colonizing were magically the bad guys. And that is continued with neocolonialism, and it puts an emphasis on minorities who do things the way that they don't want them to do. Okay, so they don't want minorities to do their own martial arts. They don't want them to make their pitch romantically to women in a way that is consistent with their values. And so they have, over the years, snuck in kind of crypto Jew statues and paintings and things of this nature. There's a bunch of racists who, commonly harass me, and they say, well, everyone knows that. Well, it's part of the story, and it's part of piecing it together. Okay, I'm not going to tell it in a way that encourages people to just say, well, I know that already, and do the wrong thing. I'm going to tell it in a way that is consistent with doing God justice, which is what it means to be a man. Everything else is what it means to be a worm. So when we look at the movie, for example, Training Day, the Southern California Hispanic gang set or faction that was there in the movie, okay, those guys were Surenos. And they have membership in Northern California, and they often call themselves upstate Surenos, what have you. And so, historically, the Surenos are seen as more racist than the Nortenos after we pass a certain point where their war with the blacks gets very much pronounced. But Nortenos are known for some racist incidents as well. Okay, so you also have to understand that when we look at it in terms of the wedding banquet, the supper of the Lord, okay, and how it connects to Revelation 19, where the birds are said to be on the verge of feeding on the flesh of all the rebels. You see that the Romans had an eagle, and the Mexican mafia have some kind of bird, a crane, I believe it is. The NF have a bird, it's a huegla bird. The BGF have a dragon because they want to demonize black people the most. The American eagle, the Nazi falcon, and of course it's a dark falcon because they're evil as opposed to being righteous. So the falcon and the leopard were very significant to African martial arts. And the leopard has yellow spots and black spots. And the falcon that is yellow, if you will, not referring to Asians but referring to being righteous, okay, is good. And the Nazi falcon, which is dark, is evil. And it's the cult of the flesh. That's why they were so flesh heavy, where Pharaoh in ancient Egypt dealt with a bunch of different types of races, right? Assyrians, Babylonians, Libyans, Nubians, various races from various places, Greeks by the Middle Kingdom or so, what have you. So that has something to do with the supper of the Lord. It's not because, these guys with these bird symbols, they're all bad guys, okay? All prison gangs, all gangs, the governments of the world, they're bad. Obviously, that's what it says in Isaiah 34, in Psalm 9, you name it. And that is key there because these guys follow that kind of neo-colonial, Greco-Roman sort of biblical model where the Greek mythology and the Bible and Sumerian mythology, Babylonian mythology, Egyptian mythology, what have you, these things are key to them. And they also incorporate Asia because they're globalists, right? So if some religion is popular, they want to be seen as ideal. If some religion is not so popular, someone who's not that high up there typically will be, using their statue, their look, their characteristics to try to get the people to worship the crypto Jews, crypto whites, crypto LGBT people that they've planted in their race during colonialism. If you disagree, feel free to disagree. We can discuss it in the comments. My research has shown me an overwhelming amount of evidence that that has taken place. I've seen it in countless videos where they depict Native American deities, people who are on the verge of being Nigerian leaders, what have you. They have crypto-Jew characteristics. And that's a huge part of the statue, right? The statue is a play on words for state, at state. Okay, the state of being. Okay. So also keep in mind, I had talked to several Surenos who seemed to be trying to collaborate with me, and I refused, right? They had kind of said things along the lines of, we know how you feel, and we're not supposed to help you, but they seemed to be trying to collaborate with me nonetheless, right? And this was a long time ago, right, during that situation. An undercover in a white van was parked on Monterey and Dunn, and I met one of the Surenos I seen was like a chubby white-skinned Sureno at the time. I was later detained in Santa Cruz at the same time as Surenos, and maybe they were trying to kind of get me to collaborate with them. I think that if I had collaborated with them, it would have caused a lot of problems. And I think that, they wanted me to be that underdog, and they wanted people of their race, from their patriarchal lines, to kind of jump me, what have you, and feel like they're doing something that they think that means that their spirit magically triumphs, but it couldn't. Okay, but I was on pretty good terms with some of the Surenos that I was detained with in Santa Cruz, but we weren't aligned or anything like that. So more and more Surenos have moved in over time. Okay. There was also a Sureno incident at my house. I don't remember if I told this story. Okay, it happened in Morgan Hill. It happened when I was around 19. I was driving home. I was very intoxicated. I wasn't used to driving intoxicated. It was very rare for that to be the case. I might have a little alcohol in my system, but I was pretty good about making sure I was sober. I didn't want to get in an accident. I was very careful about that. So I was coming home, and on one side of the property there's like a trailer where the ranch hand lives, right? And he has his family there, and his family at the time, and one of them was his relatives were they were gang members, right? Okay, and they kind of came around once in a while or whatever, and as the story goes, one of them was from the south and one was from the north. I don't know how true that is, right? But that's what I was told by the government or whatever. And so there was basically 4 Surenos that were standing on one side, and the ranch hand and 2 of his sons were there, and one of them had a girlfriend with him. And so for whatever reason, I stop maybe 20 feet away on the driveway, and I get out the vehicle. And at this point, it's like the government is controlling me, but I was faded. It's like they were controlling me. Now, keep in mind, I study mental health. I study the effects of drugs, marijuana, alcohol. Okay, I talk to many people. This is not, it's not brain seizures. It's not schizophrenia. It's not psychosis. It's not schizoaffective. It's not anything like that. It was something that the government has admitted to me on top of that. But even without the government admitting to me, the evidence is overwhelming that they have the remote brain hacking techniques. They even started passing a law. They started some kind of legislation against remote brain hacking. I don't remember if I posted that picture yet or not. I've been intending to do that. So anyway, they were hacking my brain remotely, and this was years ago. The government and the military stays way ahead of the private sector or the civilian sector, and it caused me to walk and stand next to those guys. The people on the trailer, right? They were like not very happy about it, and the people I stand next to, they were like, they're on your side. And for whatever reason, I think that what I was thinking at the time was like, well, there's more of them. That's not something that I would think, right? I'm used to being the underdog in a lot of situations, but they put it in my head that I should be on their side. And for whatever reason, they're hacking my unconscious mind, my subconscious mind. At the time, that I thought that I should stand next to them. And to make a long story short, I ended up going back to my car, ended up driving back inside. Okay, and I end up passing out. My memory of it, which is strange, is I end up passing out in the trailer. Okay, and that some of these guys came to the door, and they said, stay asleep, trust me. Or one of them came to the door first, and the other person came, and they just left. They didn't do anything, right? and I was sleeping there and the door was unlocked and so on and so forth. That's some memory. I don't know how that memory got there, because it doesn't make sense. The other memory I have is being in my room, okay, which is on the second floor, and I'm looking out, and one of those guys, the guy who was the biggest one, toughest looking at him, had a bald head. He's standing by the barn, which later on, and there's significance to that barn, but I can't tell you why that is, okay. And he, again, I'm not a secret society or anything. It has to do with certain things. If you understood the reason, you'd see it's understandable. I'm not being deceitful at all. I'm not a deceitful person. So he's kind of turns his head to the side. He had his wife beater off, and wife beater on. And I was kind of malnutrition at the time. I was probably about 170 pounds when I need to be like 190 pounds to be healthy or something like that. And 6'4", 19, what have you. And so he was probably about 25 again, just like with the guy who's a northerner, right? So he was like the southerner counterpart. I didn't think of it that way. I just thought of it that way right now. And I'm thinking he's dumb, because that's how you get yourself shot, right? He's on this property. He's like, he doesn't know where he is. There's no sign that he has a firearm on him at the time. No shots went off, and he's staring at me. And I also have a memory of there being loud noises, like they're breaking in. And for whatever reason, the government would then try to convince me. I think that's the best way to understand what happened in regards to this. They try to convince me that he broke in there and that they gang raped that female and beat these guys senseless, right? Okay, but there was no sign that the ranch hand was beaten up at any point. I've never seen him looking beaten up. Okay, there's no sign other than these memories that they try to put in my head. Now keep in mind, this is different than anything you might think. So those of you who think, hey, they could use this to pretend X, Y, and Z. First of all, my Christ argument is irrefutable. It's irrefutable. One, no one else has a logical and valid top martial arts challenge. I've had mine since 2013, and I had another significant one in May 2012. Outdoor sparring with no ill-gotten gains shows mind, body, soul, and spirit. People covertly edited some of my videos to reduce appeal, but for various reasons, they still show insight, foresight, and wisdom in a way that is unmatched in human history, and you can still tell that I'm the top martial artist and that there's a bunch of racists, playing sick games. Due to technology, breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains, my top martial arts challenge cannot be one-upped ever. Consider how many people are on the planet, consider my world record speed, what have you. So, point number 2, I tell the truth about the Royal African Falcon Top Martial Arts Order of All Mankind, which is the divine order of God, while no one else does. So we look at the movie Black Panther, for example. Token minorities try to get you to think of it like an anime festival or something, and to get you to think of it in a way that has to do with them. Okay, the top martial arts ever is not like Carlton. He's not like Obama, right? He's not a token minority, and he's not like a gangster either. But he's in some ways arguably more like a gangster than a token minority. And I tell the truth about these things. These guys don't, right? Gangsters will twist it, token minorities will twist it, and there basically aren't very many other types of black people out there. And other races aren't telling the truth about it. So I'm the only one telling the truth about it, okay? And that's part of why I'm reliable. When it comes to memory implants, they're done in a way that it causes me to question it. I've never had a memory that was proven false, okay, that was something I didn't question. And I think that has to do with the technology they have available now. So, point number 3, no one has attempted to refute my Kuro Obi black belt argument. Africans go further back than Asians do, and Obi is Igbo spelled backwards. Chi, right, is also an African word for the Chi energy they talk about moving in martial arts. And Chi in Igbo means, it means like your soul, a spirit or soul. And Chiuku or Chuku means the great soul. It means God. Okay. Obi in Igbo means King Hard Hut Essence Center Temple Core Christ. And to Satanists it means witchcraft, as they seek to shun and cheat the top martial arts ever. Point number 4. I talk about organized mass rape by deception, while almost everyone else fears the government too much to break down these truths and to break it down clearly. It is basically the process of using military-grade psychology, chemicals, substances, and materials in the food, in there, coercion, subtle coercion at times, at least, quite often really, misdirection, distractions, and various subtle techniques of deception to get people to sleep with people they otherwise wouldn't. It is done by the governing class, corporations, the governments, the military, law enforcement, even schools play a part. It goes, every group you can think of feeds into it. Think about how they all feed into white culture. What you might think of as white culture, no offense to white people, is basically this organized rape by deception culture that has various factions, right? Surfers in their own way uphold it, skaters, jocks, corporate people, churches, you name it. Okay. And it's a massive network of people. It's like a standard throughout society that causes people to date and think in a certain way. That's not good for them. Okay. So that is that. So some people might say, well, why didn't you go out and fight him? First of all, I didn't know what the hell's going on. And I had kind of taken a defensive stance. If he crosses a certain line, then I'm going to help my dad shoot him, right? And stab him, kill him, whatever. But I'm not going to, as somebody who was out of shape, was malnutrition to some degree, I spent a lot of my money on weed and alcohol kind of thing. Going to go out there as a 19-year-old guy and try to catch a fade with this guy who's fresh out the pen, when I was also kind of hungover. I was feeling very weak, very sapped, and there might have been government technology there as well, because they wanted, he looked like a Seti, and he looked like a typical evil person who's modeled after the deity Set. Now, some Aztecs look like Jews to some degree, as a story for another day, and it has something to do with that. I'm not saying the Aztec religion is good or evil for the purpose of this video, and trying not to disrespect anyone in this video, okay? But there's something there. Now, again, obviously, the Spanish were more evil than the Aztecs. I can say that, whether or not the latter was evil at all. Okay. So, when we look at San Jose, there's a road called Old Oaken Road. There's Brokaw, right? Brokaw, right? To keep the righteous person from being respected by making him broke. Now, does this work? No. Because even the word poor, the word pro is scrambled into it, and we know that, right? Spider-Man, for example, in the comics, right? A fictional character, he's poor. Superman is poor, and obviously Superman could beat Batman. The guys who are rich are like second-rate heroes. Batman and Iron Man, these are second-rate heroes, okay, in the comics themselves. This is something that we know that rich people tend to be bitch, right? No offense to anyone, it's just the truth. Okay. So there was various incidents, right, that suggest that it was a greater psychological operation going on in the area to pit Hispanic ladies and gentlemen against people of African American descent. Who are ladies and gentlemen, what have you. I mean, just using that phrase to be polite. And so the name of the Old Oakland Road, right? Why would one of the last exits in San Jose, if not the last exit, be named that? Okay. I believe it's on 101 or 68. I can't think of it right now, even though I used to go there all the time. Yeah. So also there was an incident of music in the park. There was riots between blacks and Hispanic people at San Quentin, and all those guys from San Quentin are from San Jose, right? They're from the Bay Area to a large degree, right? It's a Northern California prison where the Aryan Brotherhood is said to have started, if I'm not mistaken, and they spread into Texas and all over the place, right? There was some event like music in the park or something where 30, I'm pretty sure it was 30 on each side, 30 black gang members who, if I remember correctly, someone told me it was from Oakland, or maybe the news told me that, and 30 Northerners who often go to these events pretty deep, right, got into some kind of fight with baseball bats and so on and so forth. Okay. And so, why did that happen, right? Well, there was a time when I was at Music in the Park where, with government technology, again, at the time, I didn't quite understand what's going on. I knew that I was sad and brokenhearted and I was pissed off. And, I'm with 3 other people. Yeah, 1 Samoan and 2 black guys, all of them big. And I'm feeling kind of tough. I'm like, okay, if these guys rush us, they're gonna, they're gonna get hit hard. Right? None of them are that big, right? And so I'm staring at these guys. Another thing occurred one time with the Mongols. It was a different event where I'm walking through. I think I was just with 1 other person or something, and I'm staring at all these guys, right? And it didn't make sense to me. It's like, why would I stare at these guys, right? I'm smarter than that. I don't make that mistake. I don't respect that activity, right? But here I am. I'm feeling like it has something to do with being a man or something. I don't know. And I'm staring at them like super tough. I'm like, man, what the hell's going on? And absolutely, and I've noticed other people have that issue. You know, I don't think it's, sometimes it's genetic, but here it's clearly not. They had caused that to occur, and it, in that incident, I'm very, very saddened by it. This female looked like she's Cuban or something. I don't know. Maybe she was just Hispanic. She was arguing with another female there, who apparently had said some derogatory remark about black people, and she said, "My cousin's black." I could hear what she was saying, and some Northerners were talking to the police, and they're saying, "We got this. Don't worry about this. It's not a big deal." They're trying to smooth it over with the police while they're arguing. They're being held back, right? And she's like, "Don't you dare say that word around me," and stuff like that. And she's, it's very sad. I despise the government for having caused that to occur, having put me in danger, and my friends, and so on and so forth, and people at the park, and and for causing me to feel that way. Very unacceptable. And to some degree, I'm putting myself out there by explaining what happened, okay? Because some people are going to play stupid about it. They're going to act like I'm crazy, what have you. But they caused that to happen. And they caused this situation where I have to explain it to happen as well. Unacceptable. The government starts trouble. They have technology, and they want to prevent the rise of, the Messiah, right? There's a movie called Judas and the Black Messiah or something. Okay, on record, gang researchers have come across gang members complaining about the government's crossing out graffiti in Los Angeles, for example, to start wars with people. Some Crips have complained that during the truce, the Blood and Crip truce that they were trying to bring about, that police officers have taken their car out of the impound and did a drive-by with the car because it was a known car from like Avalon or one of these gangs, on Bloods in order to cancel the truce, right? And of course, the truce didn't really stand. I mean, there's different Crip sets aligned to different Blood sets and so on and so forth. I'm not quite sure why that is. I'm not the expert on LA history, gang history or something, but okay, it has to do with family members and drug dealers gone bad and so on and so forth, I imagine. But the truce didn't last, okay, and it has to do with the government starting shit. And they have people in secret societies they plan in gangs who fuck various people and run their mouths in a certain way that causes problems. They make it seem like someone ain't shit. They draw their manhood into question in certain ways. They do things like that. I'll tell you that for sure. Okay. So you got to understand the difference between causing bitter and petty competition, and me seeking my rightful place. See king, right? Seek ye first. See king, seeking the kingdom of heaven, right? The kingdom, right? The king smart, really. King mode, right? King do, not M for magic, but M for master. So they do all kinds of wordplay things that confuse you. Because sometimes you'll say the wordplay is trying to guide you. The wordplay is putting things out there to help you analyze them. You can't live your life based on the wordplay. You have to analyze what it's saying and make a sound decision, using universal pinpoint and moral precision, righteousness and justice, to make a decision to say, what does it mean, and is it fair and just and right? To this day, there is no available record or public record that shows how many gang-related homicides, assaults, and other forms of violence were caused by the government and police manipulation. Manipulation with advanced technology. Fusion centers and the code of silence, they have a documentary, is key, okay? And, there's one guy named Sibo from the East Coast Crip, one of these East Coast Crip gangs in Los Angeles, called the police in a song, Mr. Bad Direction, and he was right. Also, one must consider patterns in nature and degrees and variations of justice.